That's kind of like the thing with this game is I don't think about it too much now, but honestly, a lot of characters' kits are fine at skill point 1. At least in the early game while you're still leveling your account. And then later it won't even matter. Which is nice. I mean, that's like, I think that's something that, like, it is weird with this game. Like, Fate, there's a lot of problems with Fate as a gacha game. But I will say that, at least from my perspective playing other gachas, I do think Fate is more... I think you can make more account mistakes with Fate and not be punished, relatively speaking, than other gachas. At least that's been my experience, and I think that's still largely true. I think that's still something I would stick to. I think the only thing Fate has more problematic with it than other gachas is the rates for units is abysmal. Getting new units is a experience in Fate. And you can perceive that however you will. Because, like, the problem with Fate is, if you want all the units guaranteed, you're gonna need a big wallet. Whereas I feel like with other gachas, it's a little bit more wallet-friendly. So getting specific units is more accessible to new players. But in Fate, it's you get it or you don't. Unless you're willing to spend crazy amounts of money. But conversely to that is you don't need any, like, there is, other than the main supports in this game, I don't think there's very many units that you absolutely must have. Like, if you don't have a certain unit, you could still play Fate. As long as you have a few core units. Which ironically in this game are the supports, not the DPS. Which I think is kind of an interesting, like, I don't think it was intended, but it ends up being an interesting side effect of this game. But that's that's my perspective. Someone may have a slightly different perspective or a different view. And that's not okay. Shadow Realm. Where's that button? Totally agree. Yeah. And that's really all it just comes down to. It's like the big thing is, like, this game, again, the problem with it is that those support units are just so good. But there's very few DPS units that are just like I would say Spishtar is probably like one of the examples of like a DPS unit that can like completely like dominate an account. Like if this was the only like DPS unit you had, you would be in a good spot for 99% of the content. But there are very few units like that in this game. Yeah. Honestly, your best chance at Koninskaya are gonna be. Does she not have a banner during Anniversary? Because Anniversary has all the grab bags usually. Is she not on a grab bag this year? Not that I saw. Oh, rough. Yeah, I would double check. But I could. She's been in the past couple grab bags. So, if she's in a grab bag for Anniversary, that's probably your best option to get Koninskaya. And again, as a suggestion, if you are not, like, if you can't guarantee Koninskaya and Oberon, getting Castoria is honestly a great way of buffing your account a lot with very little extra input. Like, Castoria would probably be honestly, is usually my suggestion. Or would be my suggestion for most new accounts. Because it just turns the entire color of blue into your best friend. Any unit that has blue in it is now like going to carry. Whereas, unfortunately, Cunning Sky and Oberon, you need 2 pieces. Castoria, you only need 1. You know what? You know what I haven't done in a long time? I have not checked. It has to be Cunning Sky of Light. Yes, it's one of the 2. I think you're right on Light. I forget which one is which, but I think it is Light. I could have it backwards, though. It had to be one of the Cunning Skies, not the other. It's the Assassin one, not the Foreigner. Yeah, Cunning Sky of Light. There you go. It says right there. Perfect. You know what? I have not looked at one in forever. Just out of curiosity, what does the current tier list say? I have not looked at this in a long time. Alright, tier list time. Let's see, hold on a minute. So, and again, this is somebody else's tier list. This is obviously not mine. But let's see what they say. Yeah, this right here is basically step 1. Get one of these 4 units. Or basically, if you're running Arts, grab Castoria. If you want to run Buster, you need both of these units. If you want to run Quick, Scathic Scotty Ruler, like, turns Quick comps online. So good for what she is. I would say, again, these are the kind of the 4, like, kings of Fate Grand Order. If you don't have these units, it's a little bit tougher to play the game. Now, time to make fun of the old man. Now, if you can't get your hands on these 4, Scathic Scotty, Zhuzhe Liang, Sima Yi, Merlin are all great substitutes. And if you notice, your Shufu is even like EX minus. Like, Shufu is a solid unit. And again, Arash the King, the 1-star GOAT. And then Qinggong is also ridiculously good. But again, would you recommend pulling on Lady A? I think Lady A is solid. So here's the way I see it. The problem with Lady A and Merlin, I want to put them both together because they both virtually do the exact same thing. The problem with both of them is they are very good. And if you have nothing else, if you don't have any of these 4, Scotty, Sima Yi, and Zhuzhe Liang, they are a great buff to your account. The reason why I don't give them the same treatment as the other, how many was that, 7 other support units, is they don't really allow you to loop. That's their problem. They're good, but they don't enable looping in itself. They are a strong addition to your comp, and they're going to be a great way to take your like account from, you might be struggling, you might be like not sure what you're doing, to these 2 units. You just jam every time you're building a comp. You jam in one of those 2. You have a reliable support for all content. So really, it's up to you. I think it's okay. I think it's a decent option as a short-term investment. If you want a better long-term investment, you're better off going for one of the other 7. But if one of these other 7 aren't like something you can reliably get, Lady A is not a bad option. So, short answer, sure. Yeah, you could definitely roll for her. She's going to be a great buff to your account. Long answer, there are better choices if you can afford to wait. So, hopefully that answered the question. Oh man, I forgot Helena Blavatsky. That's another like random support unit that's like kind of decent. I haven't looked at the tier list. Is there ever a situation where Lady A is preferred over Castoria? No. No, there isn't. And the reason for that is because Castoria is everything in one unit. She is an offensive steroid, MP gauge battery, MP gain, so that like as you're hitting stuff with your MP with your ult, you're getting more like MP charge back, and her ult gives you better info. So literally, she is there for looping, offensive steroids, and better invulnerability. Like, virtually nothing is better for Castoria in most content. Like, Castoria is nuts. Like, there is never a situation where any support is better than Castoria in terms of just being the perfect Swiss Army knife. She does everything in one unit. She's nuts. Like, absolutely insane. Like, even Koya and Skya and Oberon, as broken as they are, they're really good for looping and clearing content. Castoria can be jammed in anything. You're about to go do a boss fight? Castoria. You're about to do story? Castoria. Are you needing to loop content? Castoria. Yeah, that honestly might all... Yeah, Castoria is almost like always universally good. If you are going to run any character that has blue, Castoria is queen. That is like the honest truth. Now, again, that's why, like, again, she's up here. Because she is the perfect Swiss Army knife of everything. Like, it's crazy. The fact that they gave her better info is crazy. Blue meaning, yeah, if your comp has blue Noble Phantasms and, like, multiple arts cards, yes, that's what like, Castoria makes all those units better. So any unit with a blue Noble Phantasm on this list goes great with Castoria. There are actually very rare, and I mean like extremely rare circumstances where I would not consider I would consider another support over Castoria. So Draco counts with blue even though she has 3 busters. Yes and no. Where is Drake on this list? Wow, she's only considered... Are they trolling? So, hold on. So, for the purposes of the question, she would be considered blue, right? Because she has a blue Noble Phantasm that does damage. So, the idea with Draco is that even though your deck is 3 Buster cards, you're going to be largely relying on the damage from your Arts Noble Phantasm to be doing the most of the work for you. So, yes, she is Arts because she has a Arts Noble Phantasm. So, yes. If their Noble Phantasm is Arts, consider them blue. I don't think there's too many units in the game that have, like a different... Like, it's very odd for units to have, like, a color Noble Phantasm in a deck that doesn't reflect it. There are a few exceptions, like Draco's kind of one of the weird exceptions. But most of them, usually, whatever their main color is, their deck kind of matches it. Lacusta, interesting. Like I said, I haven't looked at the tier list in so long, so it's kind of funny to, like, take a look at it. I kind of need to, like... I don't need to... I will filter this, though. I am kind of curious. How's 5 stars looking? The fact that she's not considered EX- anymore is actually wild to me. That's actually insane. Is it a downside for Draco that she's a blue MP in a Buster deck? Kind of. So, the problem with it is that her Noble Phantasm is single target. Which means that, on average, again, I haven't played with her yet, so I can't 100% confirm, but usually the way that plays out is, let's say you're facing a boss, which is what you're going to use Draco for. You use Draco, you hit a boss with your blue Noble Phantasm, and you get all your steroids from Castoria. Well, because you're only hitting one target, you're not going to get a full mana refund. So in other words, you're not going to, generally speaking, recharge your entire MP bar in one turn So your other cards you would want to be blue or green because then you would hit the boss with a blue normal phantasm, then hit him with an arts card, and then your MP gauge would be full, allowing you to normal phasm again next turn. But because she has 3 buster cards, this makes it harder, in theory, for her to replenish her own NP gauge. So she has higher damage output, but it's harder for her to NP multiple turns in a row without extra assistance. That's usually how that plays out. And last I checked, I don't think anything in her deck really allows her to circumvent that. Now, she does have a way of increasing her own MP gauge each turn, so that's the one advantage she kind of gets. So it's like, okay, not as big of a deal, but it is something to think about. Does the 30% sheet hurt? Yeah, that would be relevant for this conversation. So so the fact that she gets 30% MP gauge every turn is relevant because it means that whatever she gets from her attack, then she gets 30% extra at the end of the turn. So it's easier for her to recharge. And again, she may not be able to recharge herself, but it's easier to get other units to help her recharge. Because like 30% is a lot. So even if, let's say, she only got like 50% from hitting one target, 50%, then 30%. Okay, well, I have an 80% MP gauge. I just need to find 20% from another source. Well, there's plenty of units in the game that give you 20% MP gauge. So that would be very doable. Be incredibly doable. But again, it's really just like, again, she has an 8-hit count, which is nice. Really, the problem with some of this stuff is like, there are people who have, there are like much better, or maybe, I mean, oh my god, Koro, get your voice together. There are people who have done the testing on JP. Yeah, we were just talking about Draco, who already know the refund values on Draco, so they would be more knowledgeable. There's probably some analysis out there. Again, this wiki gives excellent explanations on what makes her good, what makes her not good, and what you can expect. But as a rule of thumb, that's usually what happens with a lot of single target arch units. Is they're great for boss fights, but you usually need a deck to help you get that constant refund of NP. So her having triple buster just means like, oh, yeah, I'm just using the Game Press one just because it's just easy to access. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, this is clearly the correct perfect deal, but it's like, it's good enough for most players. Just use it. I'm sure, again, there's other people out there. I'm just using Game Press because it was just quick and easy. And I just wanted to look at their tier list too, because I haven't looked at the Game Press tier list in ages. So I was kind of curious what it looked like nowadays. I've been living on Game Press for the past 2 weeks. There's a lot of information, but honestly, a lot of it doesn't become relevant until you take care of your foundations. This is... Oh, no. Abigail's still rated C+ tier. I'm still going to have to argue with Game Press with them. Yeah. This is going to be always going to be my contention. I'm always going to argue with Game Press over the rating of Abigail. I will never not argue with them. It's probably a good thing I don't know anybody from who takes care of the site, because I would be fighting them on this C+ Abigail forever. Let's see. It's more detailed, a lot more guides. I've noticed now the site's changed a little bit, which throws me off. Bro, my buddy Toria is still bottom tier. Is she really? Oh, she is. Yikes. I'm going to be honest, though, and I will say this. I tried. Bunny Toria, have you found a way to make her, really, feel good and feel broken? Because I I've struggled a little bit, to be honest. I haven't quite had as much success trying to use her. But I feel like she's gotta be good, considering there's so few Buster AoE rulers in the game. Like, there's not that many rulers to begin with. Nope, her NP hits like a wet noodle. Oh. Oh, well, if you're saying that at MP3, yeah. Oh, yeah, nah. If you're saying that and you have her MP3, it's over. No, that's the same reason I don't like Abigail Williams. Like, Abigail Williams Summer is dumpster fire. Like, I've tried. I've tried to make her work. But it's just, honestly, the problem is, like, the only reason to run Abigail is if you're hitting Berserkers. But if I'm hitting Berserkers, why wouldn't I just grab, where's my girl, Melusine, and just blow the wave up? They can't hurt you if they're dead. So it's like, I just will never, like, I can never find a justification for Abigail Summer. And then her MP also hits like a wet dude. Like, atrocious. But that's why I always argue, like, at least regular Abigail has a place. Because if I'm running regular Abigail, that means I'm running against one Berserker. And yes, there is the argument that, like, maybe I could kill that Berserker faster with another unit, but, like, most likely if I'm running Abigail, it's a boss fight. So, like, Abigail ends up being really good for those boss Berserkers. And she could just absolutely carry a boss fight on her own. And with certain units, she's crazy. Like, I'm telling you, Abigail plus Merlin clears so much content for me. It's so good. So I always get sad when I see this. There's, like, a lot of different kind of boss moves. There are. I think one of the things I've noticed with Fate that's interesting in modern days is it looks like they're struggling to, like, contain the power creep. So their solution to dealing with power creep is give a bunch of units, like, very interesting, like, niche advantages. So you have units that are, like, really good at, like, anti-evil, anti-undead, anti-dragon, right? Anti-dragon used to be, like, the OG thing. But now there's all these, like, anti-lawful, anti-human, anti-something weird characteristic that didn't exist before. I would rather use Uriel over Abigail if it's a male Berserker. I can see the argument for that, but like I said, also I dropped Claydol. Dropped Claydol. Claydol. Trying to think what that means. Right after I finished Lost Belt 5. Oh, okay. Okay. I had to take a minute to process that. Okay. Oh, man. There's only one there who is not human, just a dirt boy. Oh, Enkidu. Honestly, how's Enkidu doing? He's still solid, because Enuma Elish is OP. Enuma Elish will be good till the end of days. I'm actually surprised. Well, Moon Cancer's weird in this game. Because, like, Moon Cancer is, like, oddly good, but not good enough. I feel like that's the problem. Moon Cancer is good, just not good enough. It's like what Ruler wants to be, but not really. Looking at some of these other units. My Sentinai will still stay at A tier. She'll never falter. Because Sentinai's the GOAT. The GOAT. You know what's crazy? I rolled hard for Ibuki Doji, like, Berserker, and I rarely use her. He's very strong as Survivability, high damage, stuns gets to mine, makes him so weak. That's the other trait that, like, used to be, like, super prevalent in early Fate is Anti-Divine. And then, like, Anti-Divine, over time, it's weird. It's like, they kind of realize that there's always going to be an opportunity for anti-divine, so it kind of like falls in and out of favor depending on content. So I've noticed they don't make too many new anti-divine units because they added so many in the early days of like Fate. So like randomly, like you'll just have moments when it's like, hey, there's this boss fight and Karna is now a god again. Because Karna has anti-divine in his tech. And will just blow up something for you. Where is Karna on this list? Where's my boy? Karna? Where's my Karna? Wow, there's not mine. Where's Karna? Wait, do they... They don't even have Karna on the tier list? Is that what's going on here? Hold on, where is he? Where's my boy? Oh, there he is, B. Okay, I see him now. B tier. Honestly, unironically, you know what would make Karna good? I could tell you one easy trick that would turn Karna from B tier to A tier. With one little trick. Y'all ready for this? Y'all ready for this? I have the solution. Oh, there we go. So this isn't available till later this year. This is the only thing he needs. Give his MP gauge 30%, not 25. Karna, I think, is like the only unit in all of FGO who just has this random 25% MP gauge that does absolutely nothing. Whoever came up with this was literally trolling. Or I guess they thought that, like, in the earliest days of Fate, you would rather have, like, some weird MLB imaginary element combined with Karna, and that was going to be your solution. Which is stupid. This right here solves like 90% of his problems. And then what is this? And then whatever this is. Increase some buster strength. Oh yeah, giving him 3 turns of buffs. So that's all he needs. Just give him like a 30% battery like every other character in the game. He will actually be solid. I don't know who. Oh, they buffed him on his membership. Yeah, and I see that, which is like, that's all he needs. Like, it's great, and again, it's a needed buff because Karna suffers from season 1 syndrome, where he has this really clunky kit, where it's like, dude, he's so good, but his kit's so clunky for some reason, and it just like it's clunky in a way that like. It doesn't even make sense by the old, like, from the early days of Fate. Because, like, there are some games where you play and you recognize, like, oh, this character's clunky because of the original game design. And, like, this character was designed around these sort of ideas. And they no longer exist because we modernized the game. Karna doesn't even have that problem. His kit was clunky in the beginning. It's always been clunky. And there's, like, no reason for it. Look at a lot of seasons 1 suffers. Look at Jip English. So, like, Karna's definitely, like, season 1 syndrome, where, like, he's just, like, oh, he's so good, but just suffers. Because of just, like, the bizarreness of, like, his design doesn't make sense. And it's weird because, like, I feel like a lot of, like, the characters that hurt the worst from it are, like, a lot of the bronze and silver. And then, like, Nightingale is, like, another weird example of, like, suffers from season 1 syndrome, where, like, her entire kit makes no sense. Like, whatever they were, like, it's almost like they had an idea, they had a concept, and it just never came to fruition. And so now she looks, like, so much worse nowadays because she has no spot in the game for her. Which is kind of, like, weird to say. But... Alright, I rambled on long enough. Like I said, I was just curious what the current tier list looked like. it's kind of funny. It's kind of interesting to see nowadays. Like, and just kind of take a look. It's always fun to see, like, hey, certain units are still good. She is outclassed by a year 1 4-star caster. Yeah, right. That came before her. Which is honestly, like, what's weird. Like, Nightingale makes no sense because of it. And again, like, over the years, we've added better characters, and you can kind of tell. Like, you can kind of notice, like, over the years, you have some units that have still remained prevalent because they do something so bizarre or so strange from the early years of Fate that they're still good now. And then you just have some units that just have collapsed because they just have bad season 1 designs. Again, like, Asterios doesn't help. Chevalier Dion just, like, what is he doing? Who's way down here? Like, Gilderay Caster is just garbage. Geronimo has remained a joke in this community since the beginning of time. Jekyll and Hyde is literally worthless. Like, it's bad. Though, you know what? Credit to the game devs. Now that I'm looking at this again, if you were actually looking at this list, there is actually no... Can I filter by year? No, I can't. Honestly, there's actually not really much of a pattern between the recency of a unit and their placement on the tier list, which is kind of interesting. Because, like, okay, EX tier is virtually all new units, because these are all Lost Belts. So, okay, concede. But then you look at, like, EX minus. Waver is the beginning of the game. Waver was a really early on unit. And then you've got a mixture of units from both, like, early game and, like, Singularity units and Lost Belt units. Like, that's not bad. Look at A+. We've got some real early, again, Kukulane Caster, Enkidu, who else? Tamamo. Like, a lot of, and even Paracelsus is, like, all early game. Like, they're all from the early, like, origins. Yeah, Rosh are, like, all early, like, early at the beginning of the game. And then you have this weird mix-up of, like, later game units. So you have some more recent units like Moriarty Ruler, Morgan, Tezcat Lipoka, the new Nido Chris. So you have both old Nido Chris here, right? And then new Nido Chris. Where's new Nido Chris at? Is old Nido Chris still better than... Wait, I thought I just saw. I'm losing my mind. But yeah, like, even Nitocris is an early servant from the deal, and then you notice, like, early game unit from the Singularities sitting right next to a Lost Belt unit, Modern Welfare unit, like, most recent Lost Belt. Like, that's dope. Rider Toki. Yeah. Dude, the fact that they gave us the free, like, welfares, or the return of the welfares, and you could buy old welfare units now is so nice. I, like, instantly bought Kentucky Rider. And then again, you look at A tier. Altria Pendragon is still, like, was, like, again, beginning of the game. Squirtorio is an early unit, sitting right next to Archetype Earth. Bedivere. Julius Caesar early game. Uriel early game unit. Gilgamesh, like, season 1. Heracles season 1. But then you, like, come down and there's, like, Kama Avenger, Koyanskaya. Who else is Lost Belt? Who's also, like, a big premier Lost Belt unit? Sodom's Beast. Who else? Who else? Both your Koyanskayas. Crime Hild. Rasputin. Yeah, no, I straight up just bought the Kentucky Rider because I had the rest. There's Dio. So it's actually kind of neat. Actually, no, I give credit to the Fate Grand Order designers. If you want to know what units were new or old based on the tier list, you actually couldn't tell. Hey, look, there's Nido Chris Alter. So Nitocris Alter is like lower tier than OG Nitocris, according to this tier list. Again, bear in mind, not every tier list is good, but at the same time, it is kind of interesting that like there's a good representation across the board. Just no Gatsu. I know, it's like, what? Like, it's crazy. This is what I love about tier lists, because it's fun to just look at them and be like, are y'all just tripping? Yeah, my Nero's like in, what is this, B tier? Oh yeah, no, and I think that's good. That's what I was kind of getting at earlier. That's the weird thing about Fate is, if you notice, like this tier list is again, I don't want to like overstate, like sit here and be like, oh, the Game Press tier list is the best thing ever and you should follow it. Like, no, I'm not doing that. But I think it does, at least it serves as a good conversational foundation for kind of the one good thing about Fate is that you can jump into it 10 years later with a fresh account and your starting units that you're going to get right out the gate. Yeah, it's a little hard to tell as a new player, but once you like look at it, like let's say you could look at a tier list and be like, oh, well, I have Uriel. I have like 5 copies of her already. Oh, I can use her in the meantime. Because you don't have like a bunch of like super fancy units. You can run something like a Julius Caesar. And you're like, and there's like actual cheap units that are just as good as 5-star. Like, that's the weird thing about this game. Like, star quality isn't everything in Fate. She nukes mail so hard. Yeah. Now, now again, I did mention earlier you should always level your 5-star units first. Again, that's because on average 5-stars are still gonna be probably better than most units. Again, there, if you notice the density, again, as you go lower down, there are more and more of those bronze and silver units. But star power isn't everything. Which is like what's kind of amazing about this game. It's like, and it's again, that's kind of like the pros and cons of Fate is like having to understand and figure out what's good, and that's why community discussion is so important. Because it's like, you may pick up a brand new unit, and you may not, it's not clear if a unit is good, right? Like, for example, you may pick up, like me, I picked up, well, let's not use Abigail because I'm biased. Let's pick someone I'm not biased against. Okay, perfect example. Quit Samba right now, you can buy with Evocation. So you may wonder, like, well, is Quet Samba good? And the thing is, if you look at like how she's kind of placed on this tier list, she's a B tier. Okay. Well, it's hard to understand, like, why is she a B tier? Well, if you talk to other people, you may find out, like, on the one hand, Quet Samba can do crazy damage for a 4-star welfare. She does crazy damage. The only thing that I think realistically holds Quet Samba back is not her damage output, because her damage to her crit is wild. It's not the damage, it's the fact that she has no MP gauge and no MP refund. So because she can't, like, MP gauge and MP refund, she can't loop. So it puts her in this awkward situation where she's not as good as she could be. But again, you don't know that unless you're talking to the community and you start learning the patterns of the game and this, that, and so on. Again, like Nero Claudius, you may pick up Nero Claudius randomly, and you're like, oh, well, if Nero Claudius is good. And then you have to, like, find out that, like, well, she's arts, but she's one of the few arts units in the games that can't loop correctly. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Then there's collab that deletes writers. Yeah. But again, and it's weird, and it's sometimes like why a unit is categorized the way that they are on these tier lists may not always make sense. Again, Robin Hood, cheap investment, lots of value. Why? Because he can do a lot for very cheap. Paul Bunyan is a crazy good, like, berserker unit. But again, these are cheap units that you just have early access to. Well, I guess you can't get access to Paul Bunyan because she's a event. Actually, can you buy you can still buy the Paul Bunyan event, right? Because her event's one of the ones you can buy. It's free. Okay, yeah. Yeah, perfect, right. So, like, she's a great little cheap unit for, like, if you just don't have anything, good value. But that's why it's good, like, as a new player, don't take everything that this game says, or everything, like, a tier list says, as absolute truth, but use it as a guideline to kind of give yourself an understanding of, like, what should you be looking at, and, like, if you get a unit, like, oh, is it usable? And honestly, I would say anything as a new player who doesn't know anything, if you have anything C tier or honestly, anything C plus or above is usable in some capacity. Because they're like, and again, like C plus, you should be using kind of like, it's iffy. Wait, why is Nemo in C plus? Are they stupid? Huh? This is an example of units that are placed on a tier list of why we don't treat them as absolute truths. Because whoever put Nemo in C plus is tripping. Actually tripping. Ain't no way that's a C plus. But point stands, like even Gawain is C plus. What? Huh? But yeah, like as a new character, as a new player, anything C plus or above is useful. And like so, like you have a lot of stuff to use, and again, you have a lot of cheap units you have access to that you can use. I'm trying to remember. Actually, that's a good question. You know what? That begs a good question. How does our modern cheap units look nowadays? Arash, Qinggong, Shufu. Where's Hans at? Hans is rated B tier still. Okay. That's about what I expected. Asclepius is still good. I forget, why is it Son of 100 Personas considered good? Is it just due to a lack of assassins in the game? I don't remember anymore. Because like everything else, like I like remember why. Like Arash and Qinggong are some of the best farming units in the game. Shufu just seems like a cheap, like Nero bride, basically. Cuchulainn, Paracelsus. Those are just great farming units. Bedivere and Julius Caesar and Uriel are boss killers for cheap. I guess Antonio Salieri is a discount farming unit. Interesting. I know Spartacus is used for farming. Cuchulainn's a boss killer. Bunyan's a farmer. Robin Hood's just good content boss. Ushi's good for bosses. I guess William Tell if you don't have access to archers. David killed the Lost Belt 2 boss for me. Is there a free-to-play Buster support that has NP gauge? That is NP gauge on top of everything else? Because the Buster support in the early days was Shakespeare, but I don't think he has an NP gauge. Does he have an NP gauge nowadays? No, yeah, here it is. That's your boy. Shakespeare. Buster card for 1 turn. 20% NP gauge for an ally. Yeah, so it'd be Shakespeare. Now the problem is Shakespeare is a season 1 unit, so you only get 1 turn to bust. But 1 turn is sometimes all you need. So that's kind of the consequence of like using a lot of the early, some of the quick buster. But that's the tragedy of a lot of the season 1s is a lot of the early units have like turn 1 or like 1 turn buffs, which is kind of silly. Because I think even Shufu has like 3 turn steroids now. 3 turn steroid, 3 turn steroids. Only a 1 turn buff on the buff removal resist, which is relevant. 5 turns of gaining 20 crit stars a turn? Are you unreal? That's stupid. It's actually really good. But yeah, I've gotten so distracted today